Welcome to Fear with Christine Spratley. Living like a head in charge, the podcast where Christine says fear, questions everything, and takes bold action. Christine Spratley is a former professional boxer, nanny, and 29-plus year corporate warrior turned founder of HBIC Advisors, where she is a public speaker and coach. She's been saying fear her whole life, many times without even realizing it. So tune in, spread the word, and get ready, because this isn't about aging with grace. It's about aging with mischief, audacity, and having a damn good story to tell.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Fuck Fear with Christine Spratley, living like a head bitch in charge. And today, we're actually taping in the afternoon, which is not our usual thing, and so I'm a little bit off. I'm going to blame it on that. How's that sound?
Sure.
Does that sound okay, Joe?
Yes.
Today, I'm kind of like Francis. You remember, have any of you ever watched Stripes?
I don't remember Stripes.
Oh my gosh, what is wrong with you? You're fired. Okay, Stripes is a Bill Murray. You're off camera. Go Google it. But Stripes is a Bill Murray. He loses his girlfriend. His buddies having a bad day. So they go join the army, right? And it's just about the kind of shenanigans that they make it through basic training and all this. But it's hilarious. Harold Ramis is in it. And he's co-stars with him. It's funny as hell. And so, but in that movie, there's Francis. And I hope my listeners get this. You have to be of a certain age to get this. But Francis in this movie is, he basically says people, they're going around the room kind of introducing themselves. In the group of the basic training. And if you can pull up the clip, that's great. If not, I don't know if we're allowed to do it or not. But and he goes, Francis gets called on, and Francis goes, among other things, he says, "My name is Francis, and I'm Cicero," or something like that. And he goes, "People call me Psycho." And he says, "If you call me Francis, I'm going to kill you. So I don't like people touching my stuff. If you touch my stuff, I'm going to kill you." I mean, it just kind of goes on, and and at the end of it, the drill sergeant goes, "Relax there, Francis." And it's kind of like a Francis day. It's been like that for a couple of days right now for me. And so it's kind of, for me, one of those things that I really want credit for the things that I don't say on those days, or the things that I don't do on those days. I mean, I've got all the tools. Like, we've all got all the tools. We've been through therapy. We can meditate. But there's just something about wanting to throat punch people, And I say throat punch because a friend of mine, actually, Stephanie, who is my speech coach, we were talking about it. She's like, "Yeah, it's kind of a throat punch kind of day." And I was like, "Yeah, it's a throat punch kind of day." And I spent the weekend helping a friend do some stuff, and she's gone through a really hard time, and made me feel extremely grateful. But also, I was in a weird headspace myself. And so the monologue that was going on inside my head was like, "Oh yeah, we're going to, the outside was, oh yeah, we're going to wait here and we're going to just help you." And the inside of my head was going, "You need to hurry up and you need to, get your shit and you need to do, But I wasn't, on the outside, I was, cool, calm, and collected. And I just kind of sat with that, because it's been like that for the last couple of days, where it's just been this, I haven't been reactionary because I've been kind of watching myself, but I've almost been comically laughing. And I don't know if anybody that's listening to this has ever done that, where you've just kind of ran the tape in your head of the verbal Rolodex. And for those of you that don't know what a Rolodex is, it used to be these big, huge wheels with names and addresses, and I call them the verbal Rolodex, where I can, "Ooh, I'd like to say that. Ooh, I can't say that. Ooh, that'll get me fired. Ooh, that'll get me slapped. Ooh, no. Ooh." And then you finally find one that's, acceptable and all those things. And, but yeah, it's been one of those days, these last couple of days, and it hasn't been a bad day or anything. And it hasn't been, I'm not going through something. It's just kind of the moments where I need to just be in the raw of me. And literally, if I feel like telling you off, you may get grace, or you may get, a Francis moment. And it's just one of those toss-ups. And typically I'm glad that I have the program. And when I say the program, I'm talking about recovery in AA, because part of my recovery is when you do the damage to someone, or you go out and you verbally assassinate, which I like to do sometimes when I'm in my Francis mode, is I have to go back and apologize and make amends and kind of like clean up my side of the street. And typically I don't like doing that. I mean, if there's anything more than I hate than being wrong, is having to admit that I'm being wrong and that I've gone back and I've hurt somebody. And then, so like on top of the I'm wrong, I have to apologize to someone I don't like, who I didn't want to be wrong with in the first place. And so that keeps my mouth shut a lot of the times that I'm in these Francis modes. But more than anything, I just had to giggle about some of the stuff. And I was writing down just some of the commentary. And Joe, I don't know if you ever have play-by-play in your head that is not necessarily PG and not necessarily appropriate or going to further the dialogue. And this comes off the heels of my love, LUVE, segment. Maybe there was too much of that stuff in there. I don't know. I don't know if this is balancing it out, but I just kind of wanted to go, fuck off. Just get, everybody fuck off. And not in a mean way or anything. It's just, even my physio yesterday, or my PT, I had physio today, and my PT lady yesterday, she was so sweet. Emily is just great. And she's trying to tell me that I can't do certain things, like but in a very genteel way. She's just got that about her. She's not one of those. She's more of an angelic, gonna push you, but she's gonna push you, and I'm kind of like, it's gonna hurt, and then ow, and so she's telling me this is how you need to do this, and and you really can't, you're really not doing it right. And I looked at her and I go, why don't you just tell me to knock that shit off? It's kind of like one of those days where I want to be spoken to in a very plain and direct manner. And I would like to speak to you in a plain and direct manner, unfiltered. And so I don't know. It's just this whole time I've been thinking about this, because does that mean, I can sit here and I can think about it. And I can get into this headspace when I'm in these modes of, I must be going through something, or I must be, I need to, breathe more or whatever. And what I'm kind of doing, I'm not saying this is the right thing to do. Do not listen to the people that probably give you better insight onto why you can levitate and all of those things and reach that spiritual alignment. Today was not one of those days. I am spiritually aligned, telling you to fuck off right now. And my whole thing is, don't do any damage that you can't repair. And then my other caveat is, Christine, you don't know exactly how much damage you can actually repair. So those keep the reins on it. But so what I've done is I've gone back and I've watched the movie Stripes, or I watch movies that make me crack up. And I listen to podcasts or audios that just are very irreverent and really hilarious. And for me anyway, I find them. So if you're going through this, maybe find something that makes you just, it allows me to kind of get this out. And so when I was watching Stripes, and he's in there talking about him, his name, and that's kind of how it's like, yeah, back off. But then there's another section in that movie and another Francis moment, and it's kind of, he's not the direct highlight of that moment, but in the background, if you're in a Francis mood, let's just say that, if if you're having a Francis moment yourself and you watch the movie, you're gonna call him out. So what happens is that they're training for, they've got the parade of the group of the platoon before the brass, and their drill sergeant got blown up, so he's been out, and so they have to practice themselves, and they've got and Harold Ramis is trying to lead the group and do that, and they're fit to be tied, and that is such a grandmother saying, fit to be tied. Anyway, they are fit to be tied. And they've been working all night in the barracks and blah, 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 blah. And so, and again, just to kind of show you how irreverent. So Harold Ramis says, okay, the black guys help the white, or the white guys help the black guys. And John Candy, one of the other characters who's black, goes, what'd he just say? And John Candy throws his rifle down. He's like, he said the white guys help the black guys, and immediately the melee starts. I mean, everybody has had it up to here. They're having this melee, and in the middle of the melee, everybody is tossing each other and kind of rustling up, grabbing each other's this, that, and the other. And then there's Francis over there, and he's got his gun out, and he's literally going from one side to the other, just stay the fuck away from me. I mean, he's not saying anything, but the look on his face is hilarious. It's absolutely hilarious. And it's just kind of like that. Just stay away from me. And you're overreacting. You know that the situation does not call for napalm. Like, it's just, they just didn't get off the red light soon enough. Example, driving here, and you know me and my driving. I live in Cary now. People drive very slow here. Relative to how I like to drive. And I don't quite understand that yet, and I don't have the traffic pattern. So what I've come to realize is I have to find the pattern when there's nobody on the road so I can drive fast. Because they like to drive slow right beside each other, and then I can't pass them. So I was driving here, and I was like, and this is rolling up to this light, and I'm not on the line. I'm behind a car, and I'm in Cary, right? Like, I know they're not going to come off the light. I've been here a month. I know that. And but they've got a car that's fast, right? It's not a minivan. It's not a Subaru. It's a car that can actually get off the line. So there's a little bit of hope in me and a whole lot of I want to get there in me. And then there's Francis in me as well. So I'm like, he just didn't get off the line. He didn't get off the line at all. And he got beat by a minivan on the right. And I was like, and I just started, and it wasn't even, I wasn't yelling, which is different because, like there's moments where you're angry and you yell, but it was almost, I got into this real sarcastic mode and I came up with some real doozies, some real funny, in my head anyway, they're not for public announcement, but they were real funny. And yeah. What I've realized about that, though, is it's a release. It's a release. And it's okay. And I'm never going to be one thing all the time. I'm never going to practice all my spirituality at once. I'm never going to have all of my alignment of therapy all the time where I hit it and it just goes. And it doesn't even mean that I'm off. It just means I'm in an ornery mode. That's the one thing about me that I've also realized. And I know this may come as some of it a shock to some people, especially people that I used to work with, because they knew I was a little bit ornery, but I'm quite sideways sometimes, and I quite enjoy that. My humor is not on center, and it is sometimes. Like today, I got up again because I know I'm kind of in this mode. I started to listen to, there's a documentary on Netflix, and I'm actually going to have an episode on this, but I just haven't finished watching the documentary series, or it's not a documentary, it's a series. I don't know what it's called. But Nicolas Cage does it, and it's on cussing, the history and kind of the
I've seen that.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it.
Yeah, it's good, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're talking about what you're talking about.
Yeah, exactly. And the amount of time that he does shit is like unbelievable. But I'm right there with him, and it's and so what I've learned about me is, I mean, I got up and I started listening to that and watching it this morning as I took the dogs out, and I was cracking up. But again, I enjoy. I always have. I've always enjoyed the slapstick humor, the tad bit off center. And so when I'm in that you're gonna get it today mode, don't mess with me. And I know I didn't grow up with a mom like that, but I know I have friends that have, where they've said, yeah, mom's in her mode, like back off. She's not in a mean mode. She's in a don't fuck with me mode. And she's not in a don't fuck with me, we're going to smack you down. She's in a no, we're going to lay you out. It's a throat punch kind of day where you're like I don't have time to mess. And it's just funny because I was having this kind of day, and yet within this day I've had some really great moments with some people. And then I've had some other moments where I've literally been like, I do not have time for your bullshit. And I literally said this to someone today. I said, today is not the day that you want my undivided attention. Just not. Like, you don't want it. And they were like, okay. And I was like, yeah, you don't need it today. It's just because I don't have the energy to be nice and to be polite and to do that. Or you don't rank high enough to where I want to go scrub up the energy to do it. And so I want to come to you today and put that out there, because I know I'm not the only one. Because I've told this to my friends and they're like, yeah, we have that. And I'm like, and what's funny is I'm like, you have that? So like there are days you want to throw punch me, and they're like, oh yeah. Oh my God, yeah. Like the other day when you were saying it, I was like, oh, really? And they're like, yeah, we just didn't. I was like, and then what's really funny is when you know you have good friends is when you can go, so what was going on in your head? What didn't you say to me that you wanted to say? And that's what's really funny. You've heard me talk about my friend Inya, and we say some stuff to each other. And I'm laughing because it just doesn't hit. It doesn't hurt. It doesn't, because it's just, and some days we'll warn each other and some days we won't. But we say some pretty hilariously mean things. If you were just listening to just anybody out there was listening to us, and probably inappropriate things as well, if you want to put inappropriate in there. So I find it almost a release. And I also find it that another part of me is if I'm the good girl too long, I want to be bad. Like, it's just in me. I don't know what that is. I don't know that everybody has that. I don't care. I know that for me, I do. And I kind of like it. 'Cause it keeps me on my toes. It keeps sometimes other people on their toes. I know it helped me in business. Because every once in a while, I'd come in and I'd just be a little bit off, and not in a mean way. Because there's those people. Those are the ones that, yeah, they're not, like, they're just napalming everything left and right. And I tried really hard not to do that. But there were days when I'd come in and I'd have that little extra zinger, that little extra wit about me, sharpness about me, tongue about me, and or I was up for it. I was up for some trouble. And I'm kind of I'm kind of up for some trouble right now. And thank God I don't get into the trouble that I used to get into.
Your event doesn't just need a host. It needs a ringmaster of energy. Christine Spratley reads the room and keeps the momentum rolling like a damn orchestra conductor. With insight, humor, and a splash of mischief, she'll make sure your event isn't just organized, it's electric. After Christine takes the stage, your audience will be fully present, fired up, and not scrolling on their phones. Book her now at ChristineSpratley.com. So what are some of your tips for controlled catharsis?
Controlled catharsis?
Yeah, I mean, like you're talking about, it feels like a release. Sometimes if you don't let it go, you just get all pent up and repressed and gross feeling. I mean, that was kind of the premise of that documentary.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, yeah, and it's actually a really good documentary, but I would say my tip is I literally have comedy, and my comedy includes a variety of language. I'm trying to be controlled right now. I mean, it's got every cuss word in there. It's got some raunchy stuff. It's got some funny stuff, and then it's got some just plain, pure, funny slapstick humor. So I literally stock stuff when I'm like this. And I think that's part of it is going, okay, I'm gonna be a little bit ornery today. But 2 is don't do any damage. And don't do any damage that you can't repair. And remember, you don't always get to say what you can repair and we can't, because people can take their toys and go home. And I can sit here and say, oh, I didn't mean that. And then go, I'm sorry, you get one shot and you blew that shot and whatever. So I tend to have a group of people that I tell it to. I tend to have, you've seen my mugshot crew. You can probably tell when I've had some Francis mornings.
Yeah, get yourself a safe space, a safe friendship, somebody that gets it.
Okay, I'm going to define safe because that word just doesn't ride with me today. Safe as in somebody you can cuss with and they're not going to pray over your ass. Like somebody that's going to go, yeah, yeah, yeah.
A swear safe zone.
A swearing room. Get yourself a swearing room. Have you seen those?
I know.
Okay.
I thought this is what I call my car sometimes.
Yes. Oh, very much so. They're in TikTok or whatever the hell it's called, Instagram. They let the kids go in the bathroom and say whatever cuss words they want to.
Oh, because it's dirty.
And they're not in trouble.
The bathroom.
But there's this one, and she's not in the bathroom, and it's on there, and she goes, oh, I'm going to get so in trouble for saying this. But she comes up, and her mom's on the phone. And this is every mother. This is every mother that's ever lived. I don't care if you're stepmom. I don't care if you just borrowing the kids, whatever. She's on the phone. She's dealing with something, and her girl comes in the room. She's like, Mom, can I say a bad word? Mom, can I say a bad word? And the mom's like, what? And she's like, yeah. And the girl turns around and goes, motherfucking bitch. And so, like, I have those stockpiled. Those are my bookmarks. And I'm like, yeah, you go, girl. And sometimes I am saying, motherfucking bitch. Okay? Sometimes I am driving, saying that. Sometimes I am getting off the phone, talking to certain people and going, yeah. And then sometimes I'm just out there being lippy. Like the guy I told today, you do not want my undivided attention today. That's just not, we're not going to have this conversation. I do not want to have this conversation, and I don't think you do either. And that was the warning of, yeah, next one, it's throw punch. And yeah, I'm going to just, So for me, it is finding the people around me that get me. I don't know that it's so much safe as it's putting people around you, that understand who you truly are. And that understand that having a Francis Day does not mean I'm going through something. It just means I'm living. And today I'm a little bit lippy, and y'all can fucking deal with it. And I mean, what's really funny is there's one woman on my mugshot crew that I know, and she's very religious. In the sense of doesn't cuss, and you've seen my mugshots, so some of them have words that I don't. Well, I know because she doesn't send me anything back like I'm praying for you or anything like that. She just sent me like stuff like that, and I sent one and I was like, yeah, I know my mouth, and she just sent me back a smiley face after that. But again, they get it, and I think that part of twofold. When I do that, when I put people around me, then I'm allowing myself to recognize myself, and then also have people around me that know my worth is not attached to always the language that I use or my mood at that day, or they understand my worth, and I understand my worth because I've chosen to put people around me that don't judge me like that. The other thing that I do, as I said, I put comedy, but I also put a lot of music in my life, and music. Some days it's Metallica and Ozzy Osbourne and, it's Bad Things by Wednesday, and it's just a list of stuff. And then other days it's George Strait and Peaceful and, something like that. But some days I want that. That's what I crave. Give me food, give me fire, give me that's what I desire. You can just hear that. And it's like, yeah. And I will, be behind the Subaru going, give me food, give me food, And that's a safe space, if we want to use the word safe. But whatever it is, my biggest thing is just recognize that that's just where you're at today. That's where you are for that moment. And again, like today, I've kind of consistently had this all day long, but there was an hour and a half today where I was in a group of women. I had my women's group today where we were talking about some really serious, in-depth emotional stuff. And that didn't mean that I wasn't able to show up there. I think that is the biggest thing. You're going to find your pantry items. You're going to find your pantry items. Go talk to your girlfriends. Go talk to your husband. Try some of his shit. Try it out. Figure out what gets you to laugh at yourself from the crazy stuff that you're saying, either out loud or in your head. I would say that. But also know that it's just at that moment. And you've heard me talk about riding the wave. The emotions are just kind of the waves that you ride, and you can ride them out, then you paddle back in, then you get a different wave. And it's like when that goes through you, get it to where it goes through you. But again, it's not a catharsis as in it goes all the way out, because it's still part of me. It's part of my humor. It's part of my orneriness. And I like that I get into a little bit of trouble,
I think when you're talking about pantry items, I remember when some of my family was going through some like food therapy kind of stuff. I learned, you're supposed to just pay attention to your body and listen to your body. If you're craving something, your body probably needs something. Mm-hmm. And I think that kind of lines up with what you're saying. Like sometimes a strategic F-bomb can be more therapeutic than 1,000 affirmations. Doesn't mean affirmations aren't good. Doesn't mean an F-bomb is always the answer, but sometimes it is.
And I think you need to have them all in there. You're all in your pantry. And, it's like that day I told you about walking out that morning and saying to my husband at the time, I got your grace right here. I knew I was going to give him grace, but I was going to serve it to him with a little bit of an attitude. And that's just what I needed. And part of that allowed me to harness how I felt. And I think that is, then you just laugh at it. You just laugh at it. Sometimes you laugh at other people being morons, and sometimes you're the moron. And I'm okay being the moron sometimes. I try really hard to allow myself the ability to show up and remind myself that I can show up any way I choose, and they all have consequences. And usually we talk about consequences as in a bad way, but sometimes the consequences are really good. And when I show up sometimes and I have a little bit of Francis in me, there's some people out there that need to be kept away from me, that don't need to be in my space, and they need to stay away. And it's good when I show up sharp. So again, whether it's the affirmation, you are light, you are love, what was the mugshot that I sent the other day? And it was like, I'm kind, I am this, I am that. And then it was like, who are you kidding? But it's like that. It's like, I am all of those things. And I think from my perspective as a woman, that is the beauty and the power of being a woman, is I get to be all of it. You know, I get to be everything. In my women's group today, we were talking, you've heard me say this line before, I am the hero. I am meant to be the hero of my own story. And one of the other women brought up, she said, we are also allowed to be the villain of our own story. And I had never heard that before. And I was like, yeah, I get to start shit too. And I don't just necessarily get to be the one who saves the day, but I get to screw with some days, you know? And some people need some screwing with. Some days I need some messing with. Sometimes somebody needs, you know, some days I need to kind of be somebody like, give me a little bit of a hard time, you know? And I just had never heard that. And the whole purpose of what we were kind of talked about, as we all talked about what that meant, was we get to be our story. We get to play all of the characters in our story because it's ours. So I would suggest that, like you said, find what works for you, what you need, but also, you know, let it out in whatever feels natural. Let it out. And then if there's something there to look at it. But if not, like, fucking move on. And, you know, tomorrow will be Wednesday and I'll get up and I'll start the day again. And maybe it'll be a throat punch day and maybe not. I don't know. But today and the last few days, I've been in this Frances mode, and I've fully embraced my Frances. So again, maybe it's a perfectly timed cuss word. Maybe it's an affirmation with a smart-ass remark on the end of it. Maybe it's getting on and looking at, maybe it's turning my mugshot crew and getting those and looking at those some days. I don't know what it is for you, but own it and have it. It's part of you. It is just a part of you. And you get to walk through it and go through it and live it. And so live out loud, at least out loud in your head. But don't deny it. You know, you don't have to. Not when it's within you. And I've also noticed that when I do go through this, and I have these moments in these days like this, if there is something underneath that's causing it, like really causing it that I haven't dealt with, that comes out. That comes out because I've taken the taboo of, oh my God, we got to fix this away. And I've just kind of let it set and let it settled. And you know, it's like after a kid and they throw their tantrum and then the next thing you know, they're in the car and they're sleeping. You know, there's this calm. It's released. So I guess it is a cathartic catastrophe almost, you know? And I do cathartic cussing. And we're going to save all my cuss words for later. But I have a bunch of them. So if you haven't, two things. If you haven't watched the movie Stripes, watch it. And two, embrace your Frances. Have a Frances day. Just even your inner Frances. And be a little bit ornery when you need to be, or when you feel like being ornery. You don't have to like be the good girl. You don't. There's no such thing as the good girl. And if you're like me, if you're good for too long, you want to go be bad. So just be bad right off the bat. So until next time, ladies and gentlemen, Tubbs.
Thanks for tuning in to Fear with Christine Spratley. Living like a head in charge. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, tell her what topics you want to hear, and share this episode with someone who could use a pantry full of boldness in their life. Remember, life isn't about aging with grace. It's about aging with mischief, audacity, and having a damn good story to tell. So show up, take action, and keep saying fear.